I'm Adam Hunter in for Alicia Grabinski today. Well, should Regina be spending hundreds of millions on a new indoor public pool? Well, it depends on who you ask. It's become an election issue. The incumbent mayor, Sandra Masters, has run on the need for a new and improved indoor aquatic center.
We haven't had a pool built in the city for 34 years. It's been called for 15. It is part of our core services, and so something needs to be built, and the aquatic space itself needs to be expanded upon.
But not everyone agrees. Lori Bresciani has been a Regina City Councillor for 8 years. She's now vying for the job of mayor, and she's running on a campaign of fiscal responsibility. The new aquatic center would cost Regina citizens over $165 million. The rest of the $245 million would come from provincial and federal sources. Bresciani says Regina Council needs to slow down and consider fixing up the aging Lawson instead of building new.
Do we need a pool? Yes, we do. But I don't think we need to build the Taj Mahal. I've said that at council, and I think that we have to live within our means.
Today we're diving into this debate. We'll look at the state of public indoor pools across the province, and we're asking, are public pools worth the investment? You can join the conversation by calling 1-800-716-2221 or email us at bluesky@cbc.ca. We had requested someone from the city of Regina to be on our show today to discuss this, and they don't want to do any interviews about the pool until after the municipal election, but we do have someone who can help us understand what's going on with Regina's proposed indoor aquatic centre. Andrew Stevens is the outgoing Ward 3 City Councillor. His area covers Cathedral, North Central, and parts of downtown, and he's joined us now in our Regina studio. Good afternoon, Andrew.
Thanks for having me on the show.
Andrew, listeners outside Regina might not be up on this or familiar with what's going on with the proposed aquatic center in the city. Can you tell us what is being proposed, and you can describe what this pool would look like?
Sure. So what's on the table is a massive investment into a modern aquatic facility. That has been the leading priority when it comes to recreation for over a decade. So what we're dealing with is the legacy of consultation that started in 2008, 2009. At least 5,000 contributors and 3 elections have been held on the issue of whether or not we should actually advance this particular priority. And ultimately what it would do is invest in an amazing facility that would match other comparable cities, but certainly something that folks who live in a capital of a province should be rewarded with. And of course the price tag has inflated, but what we're seeing is that the demand for aquatic facilities for user groups and others has skyrocketed, and we are not currently meeting the demands of our residents or regionally of southern Saskatchewan. This will address that.
Where you mentioned the genesis of this that's been going on for more than a decade. It's gone through a couple of election cycles now. Where did this idea initially come from? And is it a thing that just had to happen because, as Sandra Masters pointed out, we haven't built a new facility in 34 years. The Sandra Schmerler is one of the most recent ones. And for people like me who are in their 40s, that was the new place when we were young kids.
So the origin of the pool actually starts with the people. Thousands have engaged in consultation with the city, user groups like Special Olympics and others, and just rank-and-file residents who are asking for better amenities. I'd say that where this comes from is the fact that there's about 9,000 residents who are on a waiting list for swimming lessons. It became an issue in the last election when now Mayor Sandra Masters made it a leading item, but it has been there simmering for quite some time. There's been planning, preparation, consultation, expert engagement, you name it. That's where it comes from. So this should be no surprise, and everyone who is currently on council and now running for mayor has in some capacity voted for where we're at, and we've entertained all sorts of ideas like retrofitting the Lawson, et cetera. And we all landed at one point on where we see things with a massive facility that's, far more expensive than where it initially started. But everyone on council has kind of got to us to this point.
Yeah, you mentioned money there. Let's get into that now. And initially, $80 million, I think, was the ballpark for the price tag. And it's nearly, not doubled, but $140 million. But a lot of that money, the federal government is pitching in. So I know that this was sort of tied to some federal infrastructure funds that the city had to decide where to spend the money. people may think that that's a big price tag. You were on council, as you mentioned, when these decisions were made. And we talked about one of your fellow councillors, Lori Bresciani, who's now running for mayor. She spoke to the Morning Edition about some of her concerns about the new pool. Here's what Lori Bresciani had to say.
It comes back to looking outside the box for different ways to finance things. And I think I realized, I would say, when we started, and hearing from the public, that after COVID, even the pool, they were saying, we can't afford a new pool. And yet, from the greater piece of the city, we know a pool hasn't been built in 50 or 60 years. So you have to balance that off. So do we need a pool? Yes, we do. But I don't think we need to build the Taj Mahal. I've said that at council. And I think that we have to live within our means. And I've said that many times over the council
Could you
years.
change this now if you became mayor, given that the last council before the election vote was to go ahead with the pool?
Well, I did put forth a reconsideration motion for the pool. The staff have said that, they have moved forward. There's been a lot of work done in this last year, that kind of thing. One of the things that concerned me was we were always told that the Lawson, to get the ISIP funding, it had to be replaced like for like. So that's why the Lawson had to be torn down. And so when in August, they came back and said, the government said no longer that has to be. And I said, oh, well, okay, that's great. That could be an option, that we could renovate the Lawson and then look at other options for funding if that was an opportunity, just to buy us a little more time. And that had failed. So the reconsideration motion does still stand. It would still be on the agenda. But I would absolutely like to look to see, again, have some time to look, if I am the mayor, find out what, is there any regional dollars there, economic dollars, to see if there is anything, and also to see if there is an option to look at doing the renovation to the Lawson. But again, I think it depends on how much work has been done.
So, Andrew, I know you've heard that from Ms. Bresciani in council, and hearing it again with Stephanie Langenegger. What are your thoughts on that and just the idea that this could come back again and go through a whole nother round of discussion, debate, administration, study?
I'm frustrated as a resident and as a member of council for a variety of reasons. Councillor Bresciani and I have been on council for about 8 years now, and the entire way until recently, we've both been in support of the indoor aquatic facility that's before us and that has already been approved by council. One of the reasons why costs escalate and people are frustrated is because the longer we wait for everything, the more expensive it becomes. So anybody who's telling you right now, let's wait, you're just allowing for that bill to get higher and higher. So we're seeing the consequence. And I think when you understand the repercussions of waiting, you should act upon it and build now. Based on the needs that we've seen in the community. We know the information about the Lawson and its state. We know that there's not going to be any cost savings associated with running an older facility, even if it's a hybrid model. The money we're getting from other levels of government right now, for the lack of a better term, is a sweetheart deal. It's a $245 million facility that addresses current and future needs that the city will contribute $165 million towards. So we're getting a $245 million asset that people want for $165 million if we're based on current estimates. That includes provincial dollars. There is no such thing as a regional dollar. A regional dollar in our case would be the provincial government, which to my understanding is not willing to contribute more than what the matching dollars are through the ISIP program. We are going to see savings with the geothermal facility, and we have funding for that. That can then be tethered to a pretty exciting development in Taylor Fields land, so we can talk about a district heating system that will reduce operating costs. And in terms of partnerships, we had to approve this to then go to the private sector to ask for any kind of dollars of sponsorship in some variety, right? So we couldn't do that until this was given the green light. So we have the regional dollars. I will bet money right here that if we want to splinter this into a revised Lawson, and as the councillor has suggested at a meeting, build it somewhere else, another pool in another part of the city, I will bet you money that it will be more than $165 million, and we'll get kind of a halfway approach for more money without the matching dollars, we would be flushing cash down the toilet if we canceled this. So now's not the time to get cold feet. We have to be accountable, but let's again remind ourselves that residents have engaged in this process up until now. And it'd be, I think, a disservice to the community members who took part in all of those engagement sessions, and we're designing something that has essentially been advanced by residents over several elections and in innumerable consultation sessions.
Andrew, we're going to just put a bookmark in our conversation. We want people to call in here and give us their thoughts if they're in Regina or other parts of the province on public pools. What are your thoughts on what's happening in Regina, the debate that's going on, and how it's been tied to the mayoral race, the council race? Our number is 1-800-716-2221, or you can email us at bluesky@cbc.ca. There's a lot of Regina folks who make a point of stopping at the Yorkton pool when they're traveling in that neck of the woods. In fact, it's not uncommon for families to wonder, how come Regina can't have an indoor pool on par with Yorkton? Well, to find out more about the pool in Yorkton's Gallagher Centre, we're joined by the Mayor of Yorkton, Mitch Hipsley. Hi, hello there, Mitch Hipsley. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, and thank you for having me on your program.
Thanks so much, Mayor. So tell us about the pool in Yorkton. For people that aren't there, what makes it such an attraction to the city?
You mean Regina's pool in Yorkton? All joking aside, we've heard that a number of times that many Reginians come to Yorkton for a pool. We're very proud of it. And, it's always controversial when you go to build. I recall vividly how when we tried to pass that way back when, it was like a 5149 pass because it was a lot of money back then. And then in 2005, we revamped the entire Gallagher Centre and doubled the pool and its facilities. But let me tell you, it's it's Yorkton's crown jewel in our city.
And you mentioned, that expense when it was first built. For people that aren't familiar, what was that process like? What was the price tag?
The price tag was $15 million to rebuild the actual entire Gallagher Centre. And of course, that was a ton of money even back then. That was 2005. We revamped. Originally, we used to call it the Yorkton Agriplex. We had a small pool and a curling rink and a hockey rink. So we added on and expanded everything basically. And that price tag was $15 million. Again, that was 19 years ago. So does this cost money? Absolutely. Does it warrant it? 100%. I mean, it is. We get 80,000 people go through that building every year, minimum. So it's huge. Every day we're busy there.
And you mentioned that 5149. What were some of the voices and some of the opinions of people that were opposed to that?
Well, again, it was like, do we really need this? Do we need to really spend this kind of money? And of course, the council of the day had vision and saw what it would do. Because in essence, really, if you think about it, in a small town, everyone goes to the curling rink. That's the center of the community. Well, this, in essence, in a city our size of 18,000 people, has really become the hub. Everyone gathers there for some reason or another. But the actual swimming pool is absolutely gorgeous. And I'm a swimmer as well. And you almost feel selfish going in there. It's so beautiful. But it's so well used. And do we make money on it? Absolutely not. You can't hit the total button at the end of the day and say, there, we got a profit today. They just cost money. But again, everyone knows this, the financial benefits to the whole community is unmeasurable. I mean, the hotels and the restaurants and the shopping, the cars. I mean, it's a busy, busy place here every day in Yorkton.
And I know that there's been curling events, hockey, obviously, community events at the Gallagher Centre and in and around Yorkton. What's it mean as a point of pride for the city to have something like that? And when you have people move into the community, what's their reaction? Well,
at the risk of sounding boastful, I'm going to, and pardon me, but it's one of the reasons that actual businesses come to town. They're moving their new family, or they're moving a young family into a new town, considering a good job per se, and they look at the amenities, and this is a huge reason they come here. They tell us so, because without it, maybe they would have an alternative city to move to. But it's, we're so proud of it. You walk in and it's the wow factor. You walk in, you go, where am I? I mean, look at this place.
For the people in Regina who are weighing this and thinking about it, and you've been on listening to Andrew Stevens here, and you've listened to the mayoral candidates, What's your advice as far as someone? And I know you got some competition here, obviously, if Regina builds a new facility. But what would be your advice to people here who are weighing this and thinking about it as they're listening to our show?
Well, again, I'll just speak my mind very candidly and respectfully to everyone who's listening, and that is, I've been city mayor for 4 years as a councillor prior. I'm a Yorkton bred and born boy, so to speak. This is all about the future, and this is all about vision, and this is all about planning to bring people and keep and retain people in your city. And it's an investment. I mean, when you're doing business, everyone wants to talk about we're running an X amount of $1 million business operation. It could cost money. Investment is what it's all about because the return is higher than the cost. So build it right is my opinion. I'm no engineer, but build it right. Even build it just a little past what your needs are today, because that's going to grow and expand. And Regina ain't going away, and nor is Yorkton or the other major cities too, Saskatoon included. But build it right, spend the money, do it carefully. Nothing is going to go down in price. Nothing. It's all going to go up. And we've witnessed such a dramatic increase in the last 3 years. It's unbelievable where construction costs have gone.
Mayor Hipsley, thanks so much for spending time with us today. We really appreciate your time and your knowledge on this, and best of luck with the Gallagher Center. And for myself, the Reginans in the room and listening, we welcome that pool out there. We're happy to go visit. So thanks so much for building that facility, and it is a beautiful place.
Well, thank you. It's a pleasure having you, and please continue coming to Yorkton.
Yeah, you're very welcome. Thanks so much, Mayor.
Thank you.
That's Mayor Mitch Hipsley, the mayor of Yorkton. If you've been to the Gallagher Center, our producer Nicole says it's worth stopping at, and I can also vouch for that. I've covered some news conferences there and just peeked my head at the pool and going, wow, it is really incredible. We have some callers on the line. Mike in Regina. Mike, you've been listening to our conversation. What are your thoughts?
Hi there. Can you hear me?
Yes, of course. Go ahead.
Oh, hi. Yeah, no, I'm an active swimmer. I swim at the Lawson almost every morning, and my daughter's in competitive swimming. And one of the things I think Andrew and the mayor have both outlined very clearly that it is going to be a place where people can come and gather, and whether it's leisure swimming or active aquatics programs, people will have that time to socialize, and it will benefit the health in Regina. One of the things that I just want to emphasize, though, is that if council moves to decide to renovate the Lawson, with the Lawson being closed for a couple of years, it would decimate all aquatics programs in Regina. That means every kid that's been training for the last X number of years would lose 2 years of their training with whatever program they're in, whether it's diving, water polo, competitive swimming, artistic swimming. If you ever go to the Lawson on a Friday night, you will see different sports teams practicing at the same time, and it's a madhouse. So we do need a bigger facility to accommodate all these activities that are happening at the Lawson.
Mike, I'll get Andrew to weigh in on that. Thanks so much for your call. That's been some of the criticism of this. If there is a renovation of the Lawson, then you run out of pools. There's a U of R pool. There's the Northwest Leisure Center and Schmerler, who are always overused probably. And you mentioned that wait list for swimming lessons. What would a retrofit delay there do to those programs, as Mike suggested?
All of the evidence we've seen aligns with that comment. It would decimate or at least slow the development of all sorts of competitive sports in Regina. We know that. And so all of that consultation has been before council. We've talked about it. I think it would be a dire circumstance if we let that happen. I think if there's a future conversation to have about retrofitting the Lawson, it's once the new aquatic facility is built, I would say then we have a conversation about having that as an additional field house for other sorts of indoor sports that also are lacking in terms of space. So I think we'd be missing two opportunities, and I think all of the data we have aligns with that caller's remarks.
And we have another Mike in Regina wants to weigh in. He's got a question for Andrew Stevens, who's our guest right now. He says, when you held a public meeting a couple of years ago about the pool, the repurposing of the existing facility for another purpose was seen as a good idea. Now we hear that the old facility would be a tear down. He says that makes no sense. Repurposing as a skate park, pickleball, or basketball space would seem to be an economical option. What are your thoughts on that?
totally aligned with that concern. I think initially what we had heard was there had to have been, as a condition for receiving some of that federal money, a teardown of that facility. And I think Councillor Bresciani talked about that as well. And that has changed, thankfully. And I think the point that many of us on council were raising, I know Councillor Zakidniak said the same thing, is let's have a conversation about going a step further down the road without disrupting anybody. So we have unmet needs in the recreation world, and that's a growing list. It is a deterrent for people when they make a decision about moving to a city. And I think the mayor of Yorkton did an exceptional job of highlighting that. So we know that there is a deficit of space. There's a massive need for recreation, and he's 100% correct. And I think that's a conversation that this council should actually be having rather than relitigating a pool, is what should we be thinking about when it comes to the Lawson down the road?
You want to join our conversation, we'd love to hear from you. Email bluesky@cbc.ca, or you can call us 1-800-716-2221. We're talking about public pools in the province and a specific focus today on the city of Regina, given that it's a big election topic with the civic election happening. Our next guest, Lori Walks, is a head coach of Saskatoon's Aquilines, the city's synchronized swimming club. They have bopped around to a few different pools now because of closures and renovations. The swimmers currently train at the Shaw Centre. It's a city pool with both recreational swim area and a competitive pool, but there's still not enough space. Lori is going to check in with us now. Hi there, Lori.
Hello.
So, Lori, we talked about your team having to move around from pool to pool. What caused this, as we said, bopping around from different pools in the city?
Well, what happened was the closure of Harry Bailey. And as soon as Harry Bailey closed, that meant Shaw Centre had to pick up all of the slack for all the user groups. And I'll give you an example. In our club, we trained once a week at Harry Bailey during the week and on the weekends. So that impacted our program considerably. And by having to put us now into the Shaw Centre and out of Harry Bailey, we have to share with, I added it up, we have 2 speed swimming groups, a water polo group, diving, artistic swimming, and masters. So 6 groups have to share the Shaw Centre pool space, which is a great pool, but it's still not big enough to accommodate all of those groups that want to train after school between like 4 p.m. and 8 p.m.
So you just described it, and you just took my next question. What it's like at the Shaw Centre, I think I can picture it now with all these groups competing for this time. How does something like this, getting moved around and then having to compete for these times in the water, how does it affect your performance at competitions?
Well, it's tough because every year, even including this year, we've got less and less space. So we've gone from 8 lanes to 6 lanes to 4 lanes. And for us to be competitive in our sport, we need 8 lanes by 8 lanes to be able to travel around that pool in our routines. So we get that once a week. All of our other practices were cramped into 4 lanes. We might have 5 teams in 4 lanes in the pool, which in our sport is a little bit dangerous because we do acrobatics. And so people are flying around the water, and we might have a 8-year-old or a 10-year-old that maybe isn't super self-aware and, potentially could get hurt.
Synchronized swimming, obviously, you're very involved in. We know that Saskatoon has a strong swimming and diving community as well. What's that like in the city to have, we had Ryland Weens bring home an Olympic medal just recently. What's the swimming, diving, synchronized swimming scene like in Saskatoon?
Well, it's amazing. Like we work, side by side with the divers. Actually, one of the divers' head coach daughter went to the Olympics, and she was from our club, the Saskatoon Aquilines. Kenzie Pradell from Regina, who trained in the Lawson, also was at the Olympics this summer. So we had 2 Saskatchewan athletes on the Olympic team.
You've been listening to our program. What are your thoughts on the pool proposal in Regina, spending upwards of $160 million on with federal dollars on a new aquatic center, state of the art as Andrew Stevens has been describing here? What are your thoughts on that?
My thoughts are they absolutely need to go ahead. And I encourage, people to consider that in their vote today. I will tell you, I consulted on the Shaw Centre. We did not get the facility that we wanted. The user groups did not. The Regina facility that's proposed is going to get what we as Saskatoon Aquatic Sports wanted. were a little bit jealous on this end that they're going to get that facility. If it goes through, it's going to have a diving tank and a 50-meter pool, which mean you can accommodate more people, more user groups, more public. And I hope it goes through because I think Regina desperately needs that facility.
So, Lori, when you travel around to different competitions, are there pools that you see that you go, wow, I wish we had this in Saskatoon or Regina. I wish that was closer to home?
Yeah, definitely. There are pools. I know there is a beautiful pool in Victoria that I think, I kept trying to encourage Saskatoon to go for that, look of a facility when they did the Shaw Centre. And so Victoria has a beautiful pool. There's many. So, it would be great if Regina could get a pool that, could host like amazing competitions, but also be a great pool for the public.
I think we touched on it a little bit, and we heard from the Mayor of Yorkton, Andrews touched on it as well, but the importance of public pools, not just for user groups like yourself or the divers, the swimmers that are in club competitions, but for others in the city. How does it contribute to, a healthy society, a healthy community?
Well, I think, in general, like it's swimming and, sport and just even public swimming. Like I even look at Aquafit. They're squished into 2 lanes right now in our pool, and there's a whole bunch of them, and that's our aging population. That's like health, wellness, emotional, physical well-being. And if that's not our number one concern as a city council, it should be.
Lori, thanks so much for your time today and sharing your story and your experience in Saskatoon. We appreciate it, and good luck with all the synchronized swimming with the Acklings. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
You're very welcome. Lori Walks is the head coach of the Saskatoon Acklings, a synchronized swimming team in Saskatoon. We talked about diving and swimming there and the experience of the Shaw Centre. We're going to get to our next guest who believes public pools are worth their weight in water. Paula Cashin is a board member with the Regina Water Polo Armada. She's also an instructor at the U of R in kinesiology, and she is on the line. Hi there, Paula.
Hello there.
So, Paula, you've gone to City Hall, and I'm sure Andrew Stevens will be familiar with your story. What did you say when you talked to City Council?
I was really just trying to advocate that two-pool system is definitely what Regina needs. And the point being, this weekend, there is a water polo tournament starting on Friday morning, and it'll run till Sunday. So while water polo is in there, that means any other user group and any other member of the public will not be able to come to the Lawson to swim, because water polo requires the space that the Lawson has and additional space, in fact, in order to run a successful tournament, of which we have teams from Vancouver, Calgary, Edmonton, Winnipeg that are coming. So just by water polo being in that space at the Lawson, we are using it to its maximum capacity. And that means we're putting other user groups and, of course, most importantly, the public out of a pool for the entire weekend.
We want to just put a call out to our listeners, 1-800-716-2221, or you can email us at bluesky@cbc.ca. We're talking about public pools. And there's only one taxpayer, so we are, accepting federal dollars on this. We've talked about city council putting in money, taxpayers in Regina. Are you willing to pay a bit more in taxes if it means a brand new pool in the city? Let us know. Email us. Give us a phone call, 1-800-716-2221. We're talking to Paula Cashin, a board member with the Regina Water Polo Armada. And Paula, we've been talking about pools in all parts of the province. We just heard from Lori in Saskatoon. What makes you think that taxpayers should put up money for a public pool and even a state-of-the-art public pool in the city or any city in the province?
I think this is a small problem that can be expanded locally and across the country and across the world. So our taxpayers, whether it's at the local level, provincial, or nationally, is going to either prevent health crisis or pay for the health crisis. So if we're looking at society and being contributing members, I would rather age hopefully gracefully, but definitely healthfully. And that to me means having a pool that is accessible for all people of whatever age group, starting from expectant mothers all the way to the aging population so that they can come in and do what is healthy for them in an aquatic environment, which is proven to be a very safe way because of its non-impact type of conditioning that is so good to support other sports, but also to help keep your cardiovascular system healthy. So I would rather pay for a pool rather than pay for hospitals and those sorts of treatments for the aging population that is already sick. I would rather have something that people can use for their entire lifespan that promotes healthiness rather than paying for the end phase of people who are sick, who did not take care of their bodies. So to me, a pool is a great investment that is for all people of all ages. Like I said, from, a prenatal aquafit all the way to new swimmers learning the new skill, the life skill of swimming. New Canadians, it's all accessible at a pool. And so to me, that is money well spent, putting it into something to help contribute to the health of all people so that people can, like other callers have said, be active, be social, help their spiritual side, their emotional, contribute to society after going for a great swim.
And Paul, I think that dovetails nicely with an email we received from Tony. And Tony says, without getting on too big of a soapbox, asking people to please think of children. A downtown pool with a cost-sharing arrangement offers a valuable community resource that can improve the quality of life, drive economic growth, and support public health, all while distributing the costs across multiple levels of government. The alternative of closing the Lawson for multiple years with no viable alternatives for existing competitive swim, sinker, water polo, etc. is nonsense and not common sense. Please think of the children of Regina and the province in general. And thank you, Tony, for your email. Again, you can email us at bluesky@cbc.ca or call us 1-800-716-2221. We have an email from Gerald in Chaplin who says provincial and federal dollars are being used for this project. I don't have a problem with that, even though I will not use it or likely even see it. Please remember that when you hear rural Saskatchewan gets something, we are all in this together. So that's Gerald in Chaplin, southwestern-ish Saskatchewan, saying that he's not likely to use the pool, but he sees it as a smart investment. We're talking to Paul Cashton, who's a board member with the Regina Water Polo Armada. We talked about a few things on the show here. How would this impact? You talked about the water polo event this weekend. How would this change the water polo group you're involved with? Would it make it easier to get time in the water? How would a new pool impact your group?
I love that question. I have a son who is currently a water polo player. He finishes his practice 2 nights a week at 10:30. So by the time he drives home, it's 11 o'clock. He's in grade 12. He's not going to bed till midnight because there is no pool space. The Lawson is being run from 5:45 in the morning until 10:30 at night. There is not enough pool space. I'm sure you've heard from other people advocating that we have wait lists in our programs. We know the City of Regina has 9,000 people on waitlist because they cannot access swimming lessons. So there is a huge need and a demand. And so like I said in my first point, there's a water polo tournament this weekend that shuts it down for access for public and for all other user groups. So, and like I said, we have people just this last weekend for another smaller water polo event. They were from Estevan. They were from Weyburn. They were from Saskatoon. So this is a city asset, but there are other people from the province who do benefit from this, from coming to swim meets and other things. So it's a city, problem and a city initiative, but it would be something that would benefit, again, multiple people across the province. And it is something that Regina is, in my opinion, 30 years behind on. And this is something that really needs to be supported and created so that we can keep kids and everybody in society, everybody in Regina, it would be accessible for everybody. This is something that there are free programs through the city. There are all kinds of different user groups which have various price points for them to become participants. It is something that is affordable for families to go to. So this is not talking about some elite structure that is, on a small kind of scale. It is something that could benefit society, like I've said, from prenatal care all the way up to our golden years.
Yeah, Paul, I think that's a good point because we talk about people that play hockey and ice time is very expensive, and there's definitely barriers to access there with pools. And you mentioned people being able to access it through city programs, lessons, things that aren't super expensive. I wanted to get to a caller right now. You just mentioned Estevan and people that are there coming in this weekend. We have Judy on the line who wants to talk about the facility in Estevan. Judy, what can you tell us about your pool?
Our pool is great. When it was built, it was shovel ready. So I was on a committee that was planning it, and it took a lot of planning, but it was shovel ready, so it got a lot of government funding. But it is amazing. I am a senior who has health problems, and every morning from 9 till 10, there's a water class for seniors. We've had people come from Regina that can't believe we have this every day. One lady said she did move to Estevan because she said, I can come here for water and it's so good for me, and I can't get into water classes in Regina. And the weekends, there's sometimes free swimming for kids sponsored by different clubs like the Lions Club. It's just a hub of activity in our community. We have also the skating rink, 2 rinks, and we have the library and the craft room. But it is well worth your money, and it is serving people like from all ages. And I would never be in the house I'm in if I didn't have that water pool. I go there in the summer twice a day usually. So I'm just a real proponent for a person that really wants to support that. And people in Regina, you need a pool. You need a couple of pools to serve as many people as you have. Judy, that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Judy, really appreciate your call, and your love of the Estevan pool there in the facility is co-signed by our producer, Nicole Huck, who's from that neck of the woods, who just gave me the thumbs up about the Estevan facility. So thank you for your perspective. We have Maureen, who's north of Danbury in East Central Saskatchewan. That's near Norquay. And you want to talk about the Gallagher Centre, Maureen. What can you tell us about the Gallagher Centre in Yorkton?
Well, thank you for letting me be on your show today. I am always interested in anything that is pool-related, and I certainly wish Regina well in building whatever facility they're able to build in the coming years. I did hear the interview with Mayor Hipsley regarding the Gallagher Centre in Yorkton, and I just want to say how much our whole region benefits from the Gallagher Centre in Yorkton. I'm a therapist with Good Spirit School Division, and we operate a pool program at the Gallagher pretty well monthly, with our students with special needs, and they have been so receptive to having our program there. They're also really receptive to the fact that we need to continue to look at improving accessibility at the pool. And one of the things that I would really recommend to the Regina planners is that if you're starting from the ground up, certainly speak to your planners and have input from therapists and people from all needs as to what type of facilities are needed in order to meet the needs of all people, particularly in the change rooms with adjustable height tables, XY track systems, and so forth. And the zero entry pool is just a blessing in terms of getting people with mobility needs into the water. At the Gallagher Centre, we have the water wheelchairs, which act as lift assists for us to help our kids who are non-ambulatory get into the water. I just can't say enough about the Gallagher Centre, and I'm so glad it was featured on your show today. It is a real shining star in our entire region, not only East Central, but I know Western Manitoba people also come to Yorkton for the pool. So, yes, I just wish Regina well in however the plans unfold, and certainly as most people have alluded to in their discussions today, the pool is a place for people of all ages and all needs. So there's lots to the planning. I can only imagine the amount of planning. So I wish you well, and thanks too that the Gallagher Centre got featured today. I think that is wonderful.
And Maureen, I appreciate your call, and a lot of good points there about accessibility being for all ages, and also a tourist attraction for people not only in that Yorkton region but even into Manitoba. Paula Cashton's still on the line, a board member with Regina Water Polo Armada. Paula, I had one last question for you, and it was touched on by a few people, but when we compare Regina to other pools and facilities of cities of our size across Canada, what do you see when we see Regina's, let's say, that take the Lawson, for example?
I think when people come to Regina, they, kind of laugh at the state of it. It was a beautiful pool, when it was first created 50 years ago. But now it is showing its age. It is showing that we haven't kept up with, like the previous caller just mentioned, some of the inclusivity, which is paramount for all programming. It's dark. There's no access to, natural light and things like that, which also affect mental health. So the space in itself of our requirements for two pools of 50 meters in length is the most important feature, in my opinion. And I think I'm speaking for most user groups on that aspect. But then the other things that would just make the space so much more inviting and inclusive are more space, more specialized things that include accessibility for everybody, the different flexible pools, to have some warmer aspects for some rehab, and then the cooler pools for the competitive athletes who need that type of training space. The divers have specific requirements that the diving boards that are there should almost be decommissioned. So there are so many things that building a new pool and not trying to retrofit it, not trying to dump money into something that can only be limped along for a short term. It is a scary thing to probably put your name behind something which is obviously garnering a lot of debate, but it is the right thing to do. It is what our city needs. It is what our city needs to have a facility that can support what our members want. It is something that will be something for Regina to be proud about, not to throw shade, but the Mosaic Stadium is something for Reginas to be proud of. It's a beautiful facility that people come and are excited to see. So imagine if we had a pool that had the same amount of pride right next door to it, that we could also be showing and showcasing and supporting our community and having that as a draw for more people to come to Regina to see what we have created, what we do deserve that can support, again, our community, which is the most important, but also entice other people to see another great feature that Regina has to offer.
Paula, thanks so much for your time today and sharing your story with us. We appreciate it.
I appreciate this opportunity so much. In my opinion, is so beneficial for the current generation, and it needs to be built for the future generation, for future Regina, and to support, like I said, not just the high-end kind of groups, but really to get a bunch of new people into the pool for the healthy lifestyle of aquatics. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. Paula Cashton, a board member with the Regina Water Polo Armada. She joined us on the line, and we've kicked off. Andrew Stevens in the studio. I haven't forgot about you, Andrew, but we're getting a lot of phone calls and emails here. Paula mentioned the football stadium. We had an email here as well, or someone asked about the percentage of would use an aquatic facility over the football stadium. Linda says if Regina hadn't blown all their dollars on a football field, they could likely afford to build 1 or 2 or 3 aquatic centers. And what percentage of Regina's population has ever entered Taylor Field Mosaic Stadium? What percentage would use an aquatic facility? We have Kathy who says, I think a new aquatic facility sounds like a necessary idea. What has convinced me is listening to the points put forward today. $245 million, $145 million. That sounds like a good bargain. I'm interested to know what the plans for a new library, sports center, all still on the table. I'm not in favor of that. Too many projects at one time, especially with the sports center. I would be in favor of a library being renovated. We are trying to make up our minds on who to vote for in the civic election. These conversations are very helpful, so keep them coming. We won't get into the library today, Andrew. I know that'll be a story for another day. We do have another caller. We have a couple minutes left here. Gail is in Regina. Hi there, Gail.
Hi, good afternoon. Thanks for taking my call. I'm sure if some of my friends are listening, they won't be surprised to hear me on calling. I'm a huge recreational swimmer. I'm 72 years of age. When the Wisconsin pool opened, I was thrilled. I use it 3 days a week throughout the summer. I've used it past 2 years. Lots of families use it. There's nothing really I can add in terms of using the facilities. I think the city needs an enhanced swimming facility, basically. I'm concerned that this has yet become another election issue that's come up repeatedly. I thought the issue was resolved. It's going to impact who I decide to vote for. I want the pool. We need the pool. I guess the other thing I want to comment on is all the pools in our cities are on the elderly side. I've developed an allergic reaction to chlorine, and so the only pools now I can swim in is the Wascana pool. And so I'm thrilled that we've sort of moved ahead in using alternative mechanisms for creating a safe and healthy place for people to swim. I also want to comment on the fact that there was a lot of pushback against putting in the Wascana Pool complex. And I have to say personally that I think the city has done a beautiful job. It's used by all kinds of people. It's well used. It fits in with the environment. I think it was money really well spent, and I strongly support any candidate who supports tearing out what is currently existing and putting in a new complex. As a senior, so important. I can't even begin to express how important it is that we have facilities to maintain our health and well-being.
Gail, thanks so much for your call.
That's my word.
Yeah, you were so succinct, Gail, and you saw the clock, and you're doing us a big favor there. We appreciate your call. Thanks so much.
My pleasure. Bye for now.
Andrew, you've been listening to a lot of these. We only have a minute or so left, but what are your thoughts on what the callers had to say? And it struck me that the point of pride that the people of Yorkton and area had, the people of Estevan and area had in their facilities, and how it was driving tourism, economy, and just also people being proud of having that in their community.
Well, I think this debate speaks for itself. I think we've seen and heard thousands of people, apparently not just from Regina, speak in favor of this facility and what it means for them. There are few items as a counselor that actually put smiles on people's faces. And so when I go to the Maple Leaf Pool, when I go to Wascana Pool, people are genuinely happy. And we know that people don't want to pay more for civic services, but we know also that they're more interested if it's going to a service that genuinely improves their lives, and this does. I cannot think of another public amenity, which is a core service, I might add, that helps folks from the newborn stage to seniors. So I think that speaks for itself. This place is going to be humming from the moment that it opens until when it closes for all ages, competitive swimmers, potential Olympians, and my kids who are frustrated when we can't go to the pool because there's a tournament going on.
It's a very interesting debate. It educated me even more on the topic. We really appreciate your time, Andrew, today, and best of luck post-council.
Thank you.
I know you'll be involved and probably in and on the show, so we invite you back whenever you're able, and best of luck following the election campaign here over the next few days.
Means a lot. Thank you.
That's Andrew Stevens, outgoing Ward 3 City Councillor in Regina. And we're going to talk more about this mayoral campaigns. Can be a wild ride. And this year's race in Regina is no exception. There's a wide mix of people drawn to the city's top job. So what does it take to attract quality candidates, run for civic politics? That's on our next Blue Sky.